Today marks 3 years since the Russia-Ukraine war began in 2022. Thousands of people have lost their lives, with many of Ukraine's historic infrastructure destroyed by the ongoing war. This as meetings and peace talks continue to be held in an effort to find a lasting deal between the two countries. Now, recently, delegates from Russia and the United States met in the Saudi Arabian capital, Riyadh, in discussion about prospects of ending the war in Ukraine. Now, this meeting received criticism from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, saying he would not accept any deal imposed on his country without Ukraine's involvement. But to talk more about this, we are joined by Liubov Abravitova, who is the ambassador of Ukraine to South Africa. Ambassador, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us today on this very dramatic date for Ukraine.
And it certainly is. I mean, we all remember 3 years ago when this war actually began, and here we are 3 years later. Ambassador, how would you describe the current situation in your country?
You remember when 3 years ago Russia came with unprovoked, unjustified invasion. It had a plan to overcome Ukraine in 3 days. Here we are, 1,025 days later. Ukraine is strong and resistant. This is the existential war. We're already proving it to the world for more than 3 years, but it is my obligation to remind to everyone that this war didn't start 3 years ago. It started in 2014 when Russia invaded Ukraine already and annexed Crimea. So we are in this existential war and survival mode for much longer. But today, as we are speaking, Russia is continuing to occupy and get more and more territories of Ukraine, and the aggression doesn't come just with taking the territories. It comes with the destroying of Ukraine's land. It comes with destroying of infrastructure, but most importantly, it comes with the killing of Ukrainian civilians, with abducting of Ukrainian children and taking them to Russia. This is all what Ukrainians face every day. The drone attacks that Ukraine was witnessed for last couple of days, exactly when this so-called peace negotiations or talks between Russian and American president is happening. It's also something that should be received as significant gesture from Russians, showing to the world that actually it's not interested in peace.
Yeah, I know this was a big event where Russia launched its largest drone assault since the war began, about 200 drones. So this is, again, not an indication that this is still in a very, very strong form. But let's talk about the shift in politics, because this particularly pertaining to US relations and US stance. I mean, last week on social media, we saw the United States President Donald Trump having some very strong words towards President Zelenskyy, to an extent of calling him a dictator, and without elections he must move fast or he's not going to have a country. I mean, the president further went on to basically say, again on a social media post, this is President Trump, saying that the United States spent $200 billion more than Europe, and President Zelenskyy admitted half of that money was missing. Can you give us, firstly, the truth to this missing money, and secondly, some of these shifts in the US stance?
I think that we have to start by saying that Ukraine has been receiving different types of support, both financially and military, from the United States, but also from many other partners, including Europe. That is why my president very openly speaking about the need of inclusiveness in the process of the peace discussions together with Europe and with Ukraine. It is also worth to mention that we managed in 3 years to keep our economy going we managed to develop our sector of production of weapons to the extent that Ukraine is covering 30% of the expenditures on its own. So it's a very wrong perception that someone is paying 100% for Ukraine's fight for survival and Ukraine's fight for our joint values. Secondly, we have the statistics that says that out of that amount that Mr. Trump was putting in his tweet, apart from 30% Ukraine being covering itself, the very important part of that efforts are done jointly by other partners, particularly by the European Union. And as President Zelenskyy stated, we are open and ready to any audits of such an assistance, because everything has been done transparently, and all the world has been witnessing what Ukraine was standing against.
President Zelenskyy offering to step down if that would expedite peace, if that is what the people of Ukraine want, if this would speed up the entry for the Ukraine into NATO. What is the sentiment amongst Ukrainians? I mean, to have an election, even though there is martial law?
President Zelenskyy says that when the country is under the martial law, unfortunately, we cannot have any elections, and we have to follow the main law of the country. Meantime, Ukraine is seeking for the security guarantees, the guarantees that will allow us to have a just peace and long-lasting peace. Thus, the security guarantees that today exist as a setup is NATO, and the sentiment has become even stronger with the years because alternative was not shown and was not appeared. The words of President Zelenskyy about him being able to step down if Ukraine would be accepted into the NATO means that President really willing to achieve the peace with any price when Ukraine will be guaranteed that Russia would be deprived of any possibility to again come and invade our country.
Yeah. Ambassador, let's talk a little bit about those talks. I know we alluded to them earlier, but Ukraine, and obviously it's been said that Ukraine was not invited to the peace talks that were recently held in Saudi Arabia, and these talks were basically between being led by the United States with Russia in attendance. What does Ukraine make of this? Because, I mean, being left out of talks that basically talk to the future of the country, what is the stance on this?
For these 3 years, Ukraine has been doing a lot of attempts to talk to Russians. In the beginning, we were holding different negotiations, including the very well-known Istanbul discussions that Russians very often refer to, and we can speak about it later if you wish. But to the knowledge of our viewers, more than 200 different negotiations happened with Russia. And we realized that those obligations don't have any, negotiations don't have any obligations for Russian side. And thus we stopped talking to them. We realized that our strength is the only way to the peace. And that's why we have the slogan of getting peace for Ukraine's strength.
Yeah.
We have seen through these years different initiatives that came from different countries in the world in different setups. And we've always been welcoming them because all of them were searching for the not only just peace, but the peace that would guarantee to Ukraine territorial integrity, sovereignty, and respect of international law. The discussions that were announced and that were happening were having different tones, and we heard that there would be a bilateral agenda between United States and Russia that would be discussed. You know that these countries didn't have any diplomatic contacts for a while. The concern primarily here is that by holding such discussions, and my president referred to it as well, by holding them, United States are leading the Russian Federation out of isolation that Russia has been deserving and deserves. This is the major concern. But on another hand, the discussions that are happening can look forward to finding solutions to Russian brutal war and to the violations, and to finding how Russia would be accountable and would pay for all the damage it caused. But it definitely would take Ukraine and Europe, as far as the war is happening in Europe, to make these discussions into implementation.
So, Ambassador, let me wrap up the conversation now, but I think what's important is to also talk about South Africa's stance, because we have obviously gotten word, and we saw from both of the leaders that they've confirmed that they have spoken. It's not the first time that they have spoken. They've spoken in the past, and South Africa has always maintained a neutral stance in all of this, but he has invited President Zelenskyy to come to South Africa and to have talks. The Ukrainian president also responding by putting something out on X saying a whole long thing, but most importantly, South Africa's voice matters and we count on its support. That was really just me reading the last line. Any news of when a possible state visit may happen?
Absolutely. We are in preparation for the visit of President Zelenskyy to South Africa. I think it's a very good news because the presidents and the ministers of foreign affairs were talking for all these years. We have been having the profound discussions about how we can achieve the just peace, how we can all respect the UN Charter, you know, that the delegation led by President Ramaphosa went to Ukraine. So it will be very meaningful now for President Zelenskyy to come and to focus on the role of South Africa. We believe that South Africa can play the role. We don't have to lose the focus of people in all this conflict. And I think this is very close to South Africans. People in Ukraine are suffering. Children, thousands of children being abducted, and the time is flying, and these children might never see their parents again. This is where we can receive the assistance and support of South Africa, and we very much count on it. What about the prisoners of war? How do we organize the exchange of prisoners of war on both sides? This is only the small part of the discussion. There is a big bilateral agenda, and I really want to say that there are an optimistic project for our relations as well, as we count very much that the war will come to the end, and Ukraine will need to rebuild itself, and we will have a lot of projects together.
Okay.
This is the way forward.
All right. Ambassador, thank you. Thank you very, very much for talking to us on this certainly a very somber occasion as we mark 3 years since the Ukraine war started. But as you heard, this was way before 3 years, but certainly the killing and destruction beginning at that time. Liubov Abravitova, who is the ambassador of Ukraine to South Africa, talking to us and giving us an update on the dire situation in Ukraine as we mark these 3 years since the war began. We did invite the Russian Federation Embassy for a comment. Unfortunately, they have declined to respond, but certainly we are open to that response at any time when they would like to talk to us.